Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Future History Project, Isaac Asimov's Future History. And I'm here to talk about the second volume of the trilogy by Roger MacBride Allen. Uh, it's a robot trilogy, and this one's called Inferno. Now, it carries on more or less where the first volume, Caliban, ended. Now, in that one, we saw Caliban, a no law robot. He has no three laws of robotics, and he's an oddity, definitely. And there are other robots that are called new law robots that have four laws, but they no longer have the compulsion to save humans from something. They cannot hurt humans, but they technically could stand by and watch a human get killed or get harmed in any way. And they also have the compulsion to actually do something for themselves. And that creates a bit of a problem. They don't know what to do. But there's also they're on the planet Inferno. It's a spacer world where settlers are there to help. They're trying to work together to re-terraform to save the planet because it's going backwards. And the governor is having a tough time because there's lots of corruption going on, and he's got to pick or buy a service from either the settlers or the spacers that will help reverse the terraforming and re-terraform the planet. But he gets murdered, a very brutal murder with like a blaster and a hole right through his chest. Um, and there's a lot of suspects, and one of the suspects, obviously, is Caliban and his buddy, Prospero. Both, while Caliban is a no-law robot and Prospero is a new law robot. And Prospero has been helping smuggling out new law robots from Purgatory, which is an island where the terraforming is sort of set up. And he helps them out, and there's where a lot of corruption comes in. There's a whole smuggling network that people are making a lot of money at, and the the governor has been killed, and the sheriff oh, I always forget his name. The sheriff is investigating again the murder, but he winds up becoming the next governor because he is named by the deceased governor, Greg, and so he's got this additional problem of the planet now. But he's got to solve the murder, and as I say, it's an elaborate plot that was done, very elaborate. But he does solve it in the end, and it's a good story. Like I say, I won't go into too many details. I'd like to talk more about and sort of continue on with how Roger MacBride Allen, deals with Isaac Asimov's robots and the universe. Now, he, like I say, Isaac Asimov throughout all the robot books, and a lot of this stuff has to do with issues with the three laws of robotics, and everything pretty well sort of hinges on issues around this. So MacBride Allen has created these new four laws, and there are issues around that, but he takes it a little further. He pulls out from that as well, and is looking at the spacer world as a juncture in the universe where it's a time where the spacers and the settlers, it's very unsettled, if I could use that term, for uh, for the universe, because there's still hatred on both sides for each of them, but the settlers are there for good, and it's pretty clear that the spacers are fading. They are fading away because of loss of interest in things, and no longer having any as much births as normal. So the population, especially on Inferno, has dropped dramatically. So all this is sort of the backdrop to the story, the murder mystery, as it were. And I think he deals with it quite well. Like he's in the tradition of Isaac Asimov. We're sticking to the three laws of robotics, but because it's not a short story as Asimov does in the novels, he extends things and showing a little more of the universe and where things are potentially heading. Now, it's unclear at this point what's going to happen, because you got a no-law robot, Caliban, running around loose, and he's still he's got his freedom basically at the end. There are a few things, like in the first book, the crime and the crime story aspect of it, I thought was a bit contrived, but I find that with a lot of murder mysteries or crime novels, that things are done and conveniently done for the plot and to get things going. This one's a little better, except I still, it's an elaborate thing, the elaborate plot to murder the governor, and that's not really explained why it's so elaborate. It's like, again, it didn't need to be quite as elaborate, but it makes a good story, and it allows exploration of more robot orientated things to come in with the laws of robotics, the new law or the old law. However, there are things that are carried on for the first one that I had a little bit of issue with, and it's something that is sort of a greater issue with science fiction in general, but it's sort of the economics of things. At least it was dealt with a little bit in here, but it's still not satisfying enough, because there are times where they're talking about that, the spacers don't need to live like our work, and ones that do work, it's because they feel a personal thing to do and it fulfills them to do it. Others don't work because of the robots. There's they create the wealth, so they don't need to work for the wealth. But then at other times, there are talks about people, like if they have to abandon the planet. That I think is in the first volume. I waited in order to talk about this until the second one to see if there were anything that's sort of expounded on this. But anyway, in the first one, they talk about if they had to evacuate the planet, there would be ones that couldn't afford to get out. But at other times, they're talking about that there is no money, like they don't need this, and everybody has the robots. So it's as if they're on the level playing field, but they're not on the level playing field. And clearly in this one, in this volume, money is sort of coming back, because there was a conscription of 3-law robots, like personal robots that had to be conscripted to help with the terraforming project, because there wasn't enough robots. And that has created there's still more than enough robots, but not for the spacers. They like lots of robots to do basically menial tasks. So it becomes money that other spacers are making money off of it, off planet, and the settlers use a monetary and economic monetary value or system. So it's it's not clear. Like, obviously, the economics of everything is not clear, because there was talk about in the first one that, well, they could put a dome over the city or a dome over something, but it's like, and then they're going, well, like, the economics of that, where do they get the money for this kind of thing, or where do they get the resources? Like, there are resources on the planet, but they're gonna have to trade for, like, it is something that is just sort of there in the background, that's hovering, and it's sort of like a white elephant, or not an elephant in the room, I should say. That's hovering there, that is never really talked about much at all. But that doesn't deter really too much from the story, because it is a fun story, and this happens in a lot of science fiction books, and it's in sort of or implicit in most of Asimov's work as well. Where does the money come from? Where does the finances? How does the economic system? How does these things function? And it doesn't really add up for things. But on the other hand, there are some really great stuff in here, because, like, you've got Prospero, who is sort of a philosopher in many ways, that he is studying and learning about humans, and there's the discussions with Caliban that get into quite interesting things about what humans are, and are they superior or less superior than robots. And like, on one hand, robots clearly are superior in strength and in agility, and being almost immortal. They're smarter, they're quicker, all sorts of that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, they are less superior, because they don't have the rights of humans, and especially the three law robots are virtually slaves, but they don't know it, because it's the three laws are written in them, and the way humans treat robots as well. But now you've got some other ones that don't need to. The new law ones don't actually need to obey every word that a human says. It's not written into them. So this creates a lot of interesting things. It's a lot of interesting ideas that Roger MacBride Allen has put in, and unlike any of the other, non-Asimov stories that we've read up to this point. So I'm continuing to enjoy it. This one was shorter, and I think it actually worked better shorter. The next volume, the third volume, Utopia, is a bit longer. It's the same size as the first one, 312 pages. So Utopia basically is a place on the planet where, by the sounds of it, the new law robots, and probably Caliban, is going to be sent. Because there's a call for them to not be used, actually to be destroyed. So this could be quite interesting. I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm going to start reading this now, and I hope in the next couple of days, like Thursday or possibly Friday, to have I'll come back and report on the third volume. So yeah, and that's the next installment of the Future History Project. But also, this is for the last week of New Worlds November as well, because it's robot/AI. So this one actually fits in, because it is under 250 pages. It's 244, 45 pages. So just slipped in under the wire. The other two are a bit longer. But anywho, thank you for watching, and I'd love to hear your views on these books. This is the first time I'm reading this, so again, I'm trying not to make too many spoilers with this, because I don't mind spoilers. Spoilers to me are fine. I'm okay with them. I know some people don't, but when it's a mystery type thing or crime, it does matter a little bit. So I'm not going into detail of the storyline. It's more about how the author is dealing with things. And again, he continues on with the style of each sections within a chapter that move along quite quickly, all these different scenes that are happening, and he jumps around to them, and they all sort of, coalesce near the end, and it keeps the action, going, and wants you to read on, because like it's almost as if it's not quite cliffhangers, but they're left dangling at each one until you get the next one, and then something, that sort of is a bit resolved, and then it ends with them dangling a little bit. And then now, at the end of the book, things are left dangling as well, which I hope in Utopia that MacBride Allen will continue with. Thank you, Book 2.